Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is just past midnight on Wednesday, the 23rd of April, 2025. That makes this the news for Tuesday, April 22nd, day 1154 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. How do you do? Hey, PH. I'm Peter Alexievich. And this is the Live at 5 from Kyiv, coming to you from this major European capital currently under siege. Hey, Darlene. Hey, James Boudreau. How you doing? Hey, No. Hey, Mel. Mel, I didn't see a DM from you. You said you were going to DM me, but I didn't see it. I'm well, thanks. How you doing? How's everybody doing? Hey, Rob Walker. James Boudreau being here reminds me to thank the sponsor of tonight's live, Leo Ring. James has sponsored lives before. James is a supporter of the channel. Really appreciate him. But I also appreciate Leo Ring, who is the sponsor tonight. So if we see Leo around, please thank him for me. Guys, I can't tell you what a difference people like James and Leo make in my life here. It really is it's everything to me. Well, it's not everything, but it is how we pay the bills. That's for sure. Hey, Larry Kaufman, how you doing, pal? No says my videos give them hope. Well, that is about the nicest thing anybody could say. Thank you, No. But it is not a baseless hope. It's a tough fight here. The Russians have every advantage, or had every advantage, over the Ukrainians. And they have failed. They have failed. Russia is on fire. And I don't know that the Russians are going to be out of ammunition after this hit on the GRAU, the 51st Arsenal of the GRAU. That's the Russian Federation's missile defense forces. Bjorn, we will come to that. I thought that was going to be the lead story today, but it is not. The lead story is the bombing, the successful hit of the GRAU's 51st Artillery Storage Arsenal, 70 miles northeast of Moscow. That means that whatever the Ukrainians sent to blow that place to hell, and they have blown it sky high. There's no two ways about that. Whatever they sent had to go right around Moscow. There's no two ways about it. That means those drones had to fly through 500 kilometers of Russian airspace, then successfully and not just any Russian airspace, Moscow airspace, the most defended airspace in Russia. What their defense doing? Where is their defense? It is checked out, man. It is checked out. Now, this latest strike comes right on the heels of the Easter ceasefire having ended. And it's really, so we've seen two major strikes inside Russia by the Ukrainians in the last 24 hours. And neither of those strikes were what I was expecting to see. The Ukrainians have a facility, a facile ability to change targeting and to hit where you don't expect them to hit. I thought for sure as soon as the energy infrastructure ceasefire was over, we would see the Ukrainians pounding oil refineries. Not so. Instead, we have seen them hit this major arsenal, which had not been hit last year, right? There are a dozen of these hardened bunker storage units around the western part of Russia, within missile range of the Ukrainians, a dozen of them. 2 of them were destroyed, absolutely flattened last year in what were the largest explosions of conventional munitions in the history of the world, registering a 2.6 on the Richter scale. Now, the Russians are saying that it was a smoking accident, that it was a safety violation. That is what they are saying. And is that possible? I suppose it's possible. It's not impossible. Certainly, we've seen crazier things. But it seems awfully unlikely. Look, these are hardened storage facilities. That if there was an accident in one bunker, it should be contained to the bunker, right? These things are built with 3 feet of concrete, and then they're surrounded by mounds of earthworks so that if something goes wrong in a bunker, it does not spread to the next bunker. This facility is 2.5 kilometers long, well over a mile long. Hey, Van. Something like 60 buildings in this facility, plus hardened bunkers. Even direct hits on the bunkers. It's unlikely to spread to other bunkers, and we are seeing tremendous secondary cook-offs. I mean, tremendous. The only way that this could be a smoking accident or a safety violation is if the Russians had just received loads and loads of train cars of munitions, and it was all sitting outside. How many secondary explosions there are? We're into hour 16. We're getting reports that there are missile fragments landing 10 kilometers away, right? The missile blows up in the bunker, bits of it fly out. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's really a tremendous strike by the Ukrainians. And this is what's so important about it. The Ukrainians destroyed 2 of the largest ammunition dumps that the Russians had last year. Now, this is a 3rd one that looks like it's being flattened, right? That's 3 of the 12 hardened missile storage facilities that are within missile range of the Ukrainians. Well, how many hardened storage facilities do the Russians have? Let's ask ourselves that question. Over 2 dozen. Now, there's a dozen within missile range of the Ukrainians. Where are the other 12? They're in the east. They're out going toward Kazakhstan, out in Vladivostok, out in the Far East. Well outside the range of Ukrainian missiles, right? So what's the status on those? This is unconfirmed, but multiple sources have reported that those eastern arsenals are empty. They're empty. Of course they are. This war's been going on for 3 years, 11 years, really. But we'll call it 3 since the full-scale invasion, right? For 3 years, the Russians have been throwing everything they can at Ukraine. That means that all of that ammunition that was out in those eastern storage facilities had to be brought to the front. It's gone. By all accounts, those bunkers are mostly empty. The Ukrainians striking the 51st Arsenal today is a real blow to the Russian weapons storage. Absolutely it is. Make no mistake. Make no mistake. Now, so this is the biggest story today. It's a huge hit. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Ukrainians didn't hit it. Maybe Ivan was just smoking irresponsibly again. Ivan really does need to quit smoking. Ugh. So we'll find out, and we'll get some satellite imagery over the next couple days, and I will follow up with you. Now, the other hit inside Russia, which again, maybe it wasn't the Ukrainians, was on the Volgograd hydroelectric facility. This is a dam. It's a hydroelectric plant at a dam in Volgograd. The Russians say they were just burning weeds in the swamps around there. Really? Okay, first of all, it's the wrong time of year for that, right? You do that in the fall if you're going to do it. Secondly, they don't explode. They don't send mushroom-shaped clouds of flame 300 feet in the air. That is not a thing that dried reeds do. So I think that's a load of shit, that story. But the Ukrainians have yet to take responsibility for that hit on the Volgograd hydroelectric plant. So that could legitimately be Ivan smoking, let's say. Now, initially, I start getting ready for the Live at 5 the first thing in the morning. When I tweet out or post on Blue Sky Threads and Instagram the overnight missile and drone attack figures. Which, if you don't follow me on those platforms and you're on those platforms, please follow me on those platforms. Because every morning, I send out the losses of the Russian Federation and I post the overnight missile and drone attack figures. Every morning, 7 days a week. That's the only thing I do 7 days a week. And this morning, the first thing I saw, what I thought was going to be the big news today. Does anyone know if the rest of the storage facilities are as big as this one? It's a great question, ProDog. The biggest of the storage facilities were hit last year. So the two biggest ones were hit last year. This one is a big one. It's got to be in the top 10. Got to be in the top 10. Now, Trump Strong is from Russia. Imagine my surprise. Imagine my surprise. Right, so you're not really a traitor. You're just on the side of the Russians. There you go. There you go. That explains so much about your commentary. And the big difference between my commentary and the commentary of people like Trump Strong and the Trumpists is that my commentary is fact-based. That is the difference between us. That is the difference between us. Okay, now, what I thought the big story today was going to be, it was the first thing I saw when I woke up, and I was so happy about it. It appears that the first Swedish AWAC, what they call the Saab 340 or the ACS 289, I think. I want to say something like that. Arrived in Ukraine. Now, look, the Swedes promised Ukraine 2 of these well over a year ago. The crews went to Sweden. They were trained. The mechanics were trained. The ground crews were trained. The radar operators were trained. And they've all been back in Ukraine. I want to say they returned in early December, ahead of the holidays, maybe late November. I'm not sure. But they've been back in country for about 4 months, waiting for these planes to show up. And there was a lot of discussion about why the planes were held up. We don't really know, but the delivery of the planes was held up. Legitimately, there was a capabilities gap. That is to say that if the Swedes sent both of those planes to Ukraine, they wouldn't have one for themselves because they're waiting for the new ones to come in. So one of them finally arrived here in Ukraine. This is a big deal. Right now, especially right now. Remember, The Russians haven't been able to fly their AWACS since the Ukrainians shot 2 of them out of the sky last year. The whole fleet is grounded. So they don't have the eyes in the sky. That's one of the reasons why neither side in this conflict, especially the Russians with every advantage, have been unable to establish air superiority over this territory. Nobody has air superiority in Ukraine. That is changing. That is changing. The F-16s, which are well known as some of the most versatile multi-role fighters in the world, have been doing just one job: keeping the skies clear, shooting down missiles and drones, right, for the last 10 months. And the pilots have gotten very good at it. November, December, January, February, what did we see every single day? Every single day we saw the Ukrainians striking frontline air defense of the Russian Federation, or radars, blinding the Russians to the skies, blinding them so that they can't see what's coming, taking out the air defense that would then save them from what was coming. What has the practical upshot of 4 months of heavy hits against Russian defensive radars and air defense been? The F-16s are engaging in a new role: close air support for frontline troops. In the last 2 weeks, we have seen the Ukrainians using the F-16s make 22 precision hits against high-value targets all up and down the front line. From troop concentrations that are trying to get to Belgorod, to command and control centers. Twice in Kherson in the last 2 weeks, there was a decapitation strike against the command and control of the Russian Federation in Kherson. F-16s and JDAMs took them all out. The new commanding officers arrived. They had their first general staff meeting. JDAMs took them all out. The entire command and control of the Southern Military District in the temporarily occupied territories eliminated twice in 2 weeks. Unbelievable. Drone operators. 20 drone operators into Kyiv and 1 shot with a JDAM into the operational headquarters. Same things with drone launch sites all up and down the... Remember, 1/3 of the drones that come every night to terrorize the people of Ukraine are launched from Kursk, Russia. So hitting that drone operator station in Tetkino was a blow to the Russian drone operations in Western Kursk. There's no doubt about that. And I apologize, I did misspeak on the video. I think I said it was a blow to Ukrainian drone operators. That is not correct. It was clearly a blow to the Russians. 22 of these high priority, high value precision strikes in the last 2 weeks. The Ukrainian F-16s are increasingly in control of the skies here, and increasingly are being used for a new role, providing close air support for ground troops in ways that we have not seen before. Now, is it risky? Sure, it's risky. The Ukrainians just lost their first F-16 running these missions, and the pilot. So, there is a danger there. It's a risky business. It's a tough business. It's a tough job. But the Ukrainians are up to the challenge. Now, you got F-16s that are getting ready to do close ground support for infantry on the ground You are there for real maneuver warfare. Now, whether or not the battlefield conditions will allow the Ukrainians the freedom of mobility to do just that remains to be seen. But they are certainly acquiring the capabilities to do all of that. Now, this new plane, this new Swedish AWAC that has arrived, this works in close conjunction with the F-16s to identify targets and provide targeting solutions. When it comes to gaining air superiority, closing the skies over Ukraine, both of these developments, the evolution of the Ukrainian F-16 flexibility and the addition of this early warning detection radar plane, could make all the difference in getting Ukraine to a point where they've got air superiority over their own country. Hopefully it is coming soon. Hopefully it's coming soon. That is the direction things are moving at. You can't have warthogs without air superiority. They've got to get that first. That's, as I understand it, right? And this is not my area. I'm not an expert in this area, but the people that I listen to tell me that the warthogs are the A-10s are no good unless you can protect them from the skies. And right now, the Ukrainians are just working on developing that capability. Do you not think all this new Western tech will allow a summer Ukrainian counteroffensive? Leonardo, I don't know. I don't know. There is the question of, do the Ukrainians want to go on the offensive? Going on the offensive costs lives. Are the Ukrainians better off increasingly running the deep battle and winning it, while they attrit Russian forces on the front lines at the extraordinary rate that they are attritting them, and just kind of keep things as they are and preserve as many Ukrainian lives as possible, and wait for what I think is an inevitable Russian frontline collapse? And how long can they afford even to do that, Leonardo? I don't know. I don't know. It's a good question. And we'll see. If Syrskyi thinks he can pull it off, you can bet they'll do it. But it all comes down to what Syrskyi thinks is possible. What is this Trump is coming out saying that he hopes Ukraine and Russia can do a deal this week? It's Trump's complete arrogance, ignorance, and self-centeredness, along with all the bullshit he talks to his base. Because what happened in Paris this week, or last week, should be clear to everybody. The U.S. delegation heard from the Ukrainians exactly what they will not accept. And that's exactly what the Russians are insisting on. It's irreconcilable differences. That's why Marco Rubio walked away from those talks throwing his hands in the air, saying, peace is too hard. This is taking too long. We're going to walk away if you guys don't do something fast. It is so embarrassing being an American under this administration. Will the U.S. send weapons to Ukraine? Lady, I don't know. I really don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody knows what Trump is going to do. Right? I mean, he's so mercurial. He changes like the wind. Like the moon, he's constantly waxing and waning. So it is very hard to know. And everything he has done has been a gift to Russia. It's all been oxygen to the Kremlin. They're popping champagne corks in Russia right now because the Trump administration has come out and said its peace plan denies NATO membership to Ukraine, which everyone in NATO says is inevitable for Ukraine. And it forces Ukraine to recognize Crimea as Russian. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So that deal is dead on arrival. There is no deal. Trump is a lunatic who is completely divorced from reality, and no one should listen to anything he says. Trust on Europe and forget the USA because Trump is a puppet from Putin. You are right, Norbert. I agree. It's my opinion that with Trump in the White House, America has enough of its own problems. Trump can't be trusted to execute foreign policy that's in America's interest. And our allies cannot trust him. I'm sorry. Believe me, I'm sorry. I wish we were not in this situation. I believe we are in this situation because of the Russians. Absolutely. I think Trump is a Russian asset. Now, tomorrow, Zelensky is in London, meeting with the Europeans. I hope that he's going to come back from London with real security assurances and guarantees. Personally, I'm of the opinion that it's time to close NATO down. Shut it down. With the U.S. cutting funding for NATO by 90% for fiscal year 2026, according to the Trump administration's latest budget projections. With them doing that, and with Trump's absolute ambivalence toward NATO, and his animosity toward our allies, we can't be trusted. NATO's time may well be done. And that's okay. You get rid of Trump, so you don't have a Putin apologist on the NATO team, the new NATO team, and you create something new that does the job of NATO. Call it the North European Atlantic Treaty Organization, because it includes Canada too, right? Call it that. NATO. We'll call it NATO, the North European Atlantic Treaty Organization, and put Ukraine in that. And fuck NATO, fuck Trump, fuck the US, because we're not anybody's friend right now. We need a serious rehab time. Now, as far as Crimea goes, could the Trump administration acknowledge Russia's ownership of Crimea? It could. It could. It's worth pointing out that the head of the Crimean Tatar, it's like a legislative body, kind of. I'm not exactly sure, but basically these folks are the political wing of all of the indigenous Crimean Tatar people. They declared unilaterally today that they would recognize no foreign government's acknowledgement of Crimea as Russian. So without the Tatars on your side, who are the people that inhabit Crimea, I don't think that you have much of a... You got no cards, Donald. You got no cards, Donald. Why do they need some voting to say they are in NATO? That's how you get in, Scotty. Everybody's got to approve you. And between Orban, it's Orban, isn't it? Hungary's in NATO, aren't they? Or maybe he's just EU anyway. But it's the same kind of thing. Trump is going to be the Orban of NATO for these guys. Chris, there's lots of shit in the U.S. Constitution that would get him out as president, but the entire Republican Party is protecting him. They are all going along with this. He is not like his Apprentice performances. No, he is not. I mean, I don't know. I never saw The Apprentice, but I can imagine. You could call it photo. Fuck off Trump organization, Nightshade. I like it. Do you accept Ukraine will end up having to give up some of its territory? No, I do not accept that. Is the Russian troop buildup fake news? Why doesn't Ukraine just strike them? Greg, that is a great question. And it takes us to a very important part of the front, the Russian front. Kursk and now Belgorod Oblast of the Russian Federation have been under Ukrainian control for over 8 months. This has been a huge political win for Ukraine. It demonstrates the seriousness of Ukraine to move the battle to take it to Russia. It was a huge embarrassment to the Russians and to the Putin regime in the Kremlin. It pinned inside of Kursk, Russia, an estimated 62,000 troops. Right now it's 62,000. But Greg, think about what happened. The North Koreans came in, threw 4,000 men against the Ukrainians and cut their supply lines. Think about how big that 1,000 square kilometers was that the Ukrainians were holding inside Kursk. Now collapse it down to 13 square kilometers, right? About 7 square miles. It's just a toehold in Russia today. Well, imagine when it was 1,000 square kilometers, you had 62,000 troops all around the edge, the front line. Now collapse that to a 24-kilometer front line, but you still got 62,000 troops. That's a problem for the Ukrainians. Those troops are threatening to open a new front inside of Ukraine, destroy more Ukrainian cities, create another flux of refugees internally displaced in Ukraine. The Ukrainians want to stop that. So they have gone into Belgorod, another Russian oblast. They only control about 13 square kilometers of it, but they're on Russian soil. So do the Russians make invading a new territory of Ukraine, one that they don't even claim as historically Russian? Do they make that move, or do they get them out of Belgorod first? As you can imagine, they want them out of Russia. So what are they doing? That 62,000 troops that's there, 10,000 of them have already been sent to Belgorod to kick the Ukrainians out of Belgorod. Many of those 10,000 never made it. Why? Because the F-16s got them en route. That's why. So now the Russians have to send another 5,000. So we're seeing that force of 62,000 rapidly depleted by the Belgorod incursion. But that's not all. There's a lot less North Koreans in Kursk these days because of the Colombians. Now, I've known a few Colombians, right, who were part of the 2nd Battalion of the International Legion. These guys are fucking nuts. They're crazy. These guys were trained to fight cartels in the jungles of Colombia. They are nutso, crazy. And they're doing a hell of a job on the North Koreans up in Kursk, by all accounts. These guys are operating as sabotage groups behind the lines. They're sneaking onto the other side of the Russian line. And then, when you least expect it, the Russian troops find themselves sabotaged, hit with enemy drones that their positions have been radioed in on, or simply Colombian necktied before they even know what hit them. The Colombians are doing incredible work in Kursk right now, by all reports I'm getting. And they're helping to pin those 62,000 troops right there inside Russia rather than over the border in Ukraine. So no, Greg, I don't believe that it's fake news. Certainly that part of it isn't. Russia does want NATO gone, but it doesn't want it replaced. That's why I think the Europeans need to accept the reality. The American government, the American federal system has been subverted by a malign foreign power in the person of Donald Trump. It's just that simple. The thing we thought could never happen to us, the U.S., has happened. Olympus has fallen to the cheers of YMC fucking A. Now, let me see what else is going on here. Thanks, PH. Is Russia still able to recruit troops? So, Brodog, my understanding on this is that the Russians are losing about 40,000 troops a month. KIA, WIA, MIA, and POW. About 40,000 a month. They are currently recruiting at a rate of about 28,500. So it's a deficit of about 12,000 troops every month. This has been going on for 4 months. That's a net deficit of 50,000 troops on the front lines. Additionally, much of the recruiting has been going on in Samara Oblast. Why Samara Oblast? Why are they recruiting in Samara but not in Moscow and St. Petersburg? Because in Samara, they're offering 4 million rubles as a signing bonus. So anybody inside of Russia that's desperate or patriotic, I guess you could say, is traveling to Samara to sign the contracts there. And that's now hitting the Samara Oblast budget. They've run out of money to keep doing it. So it's very hard to say where the next bunch of troops are going to come from. They've been doing crypto mobilization very successfully in Uganda, in Kenya, in Sudan, in Sri Lanka. They had been doing it very successfully in India until they were all arrested and rounded up. And of course, we're seeing Chinese nationals as well on the front. Right, now that, Krager, that's a good point right there. Now I saw there was another comment that I wanted to... Is it possible that Zelensky might accept territory lines as in a ceasefire? No, he will not. He's been very clear on that. Krager, what did you say? You said something that I thought was worth talking about, but now I can't find it. Oh, right, here it is. Saw them raiding gyms in Petersburg lately. They're raiding gyms, nightclubs, warehouses, anywhere where there's a bunch of military-age men that can be conscripted. The Russians are doing that today. Yes, they are, in both Petersburg and Moscow. Now, that is a sign that the Russians are increasingly desperate. Interesting article in the Kyiv Post today about Chinese nationals in the Russian army. Apparently, some of them have been found to be shipping Russian military hardware home to China where it's being counterfeited. That AK-47 you bought says made in USSR might actually be a recent reproduction made in Hongshu, right? The Chinese. Are there many Russian deserters? We don't know, Altered Carbon. We don't really know. Now, so a couple things on this. According to the Ukrainians, in the southern military district alone, the Atesh partisan group claims that it has data of about 18,000 desertions in the last 6 months or so in the southern military district. So that's Kherson, Crimea, and Zaporizhia. We do know that there's a detention facility in Krasnodar. At that detention facility for deserters, 100 prisoners just staged an escape, a prison riot and an escape. It is believed that 3 of them are still at large, and there is a major manhunt underway for them. So not only do we know that there are, in fact, deserters, of course there always are in every war, on all sides, that's true of the Ukrainians too. So not only do we know that there are deserters, we know that the deserters are not happy and are breaking out of the prison for deserters. That appears to all be true. Ukraine wouldn't be able to keep fighting long enough to outlast Trump's term in office, could they? Boy, Michael. I mean, the Ukrainians have been fighting this war for 11 years with nothing. With nothing. They have done so much for so long with so little. If you ask me, I'd say they're capable of doing anything with nothing. So I don't know the answer. I don't think Russia can last 4 years. I really don't. I don't think Russia can last 8 months. Trump won't be impeached with the Republicans in charge of the House. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Not with Moscow Mike in charge of the House. No way. I hope you're right, Dawn Patrols. I hope that Ukraine can keep it up. They can certainly keep it up for a while. That's for sure. For anybody that's interested in contributing to Ukraine, the place to do it is united24.gov.ua. That is really the place to do it. There are a couple of groups that I work with, certainly Tony Takiri from Fast Angels. That guy does great work. Certainly Blue Ariel Silk, who does a lot of great work for Ukraine, as does the Spirit of Ukraine Foundation. So I consider all of them to be legitimate charities. I am not a charity. I am a business. I am in the business of news and in the business of disambiguating Russian disinformation. If you are interested in helping me disambiguate Russian disinformation, keeping me in Ukraine and keeping these reports flowing, please consider joining the Patreon. If you can kick me $5 a month, that's a big help to me. It really is. You can also sponsor a live like Leo Ring did tonight. And that makes a big difference to me. Leo's support the support of Leo, Dark Irish, Eli. The list goes on and on, guys. I cannot possibly name everybody. Bobby, Dan Ballard. These people are so important. They're stalwart supporters of this channel, and I couldn't do it without them. You can be one too. Join the Patreon. And if you don't have $5 to kick me, join the Patreon anyway. You get everything for free. If you don't have $5 to send me, by all means, get a free account if you want to know what's going on in Ukraine. Hey, Jacob Grady. How you doing? Always nice to see you, pal. Yeah, no, these people know what's waiting for them if Russia wins. They also know what their friends and family are suffering in the temporarily occupied territories. And they are not ready to give those 4 million Ukrainians up. Not by a long shot. Not by a long shot. And I don't think they should have to. For some piece of shit, 300 pounds of dog shit and fake tan in a cheap suit, hell-bent on the destruction of the system that made him so rich. It's obscene. Yeah, Waldo, nobody's given up Crimea. That's a fever dream of the alt-right and the Russians. Okay, guys, we got 11 minutes here. So again, let me thank Leo Ring, who's the sponsor of tonight's live. Let me thank Lars, who has the Discord server. Let me thank Jay and Travis, our moderators. And, of course, Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces. Really, Leonardo, you're a Marine. Semper Fi, bro. Listen, if you're in Kyiv, hit me up. Buy you coffee. Di Watkins, I've never seen you on a live before. You take it I don't like Trump. Well, you are a master of understatement, my friend. Thanks, Jax. Will the Turks close the Black Sea? The Turks have closed the Black Sea. Under the Montreux Convention in times of war, the Turks have absolute authority to deny or grant access to the Black Sea. They have consistently denied it to all Russian military vessels and Ukrainian military vessels. So the Black Sea is closed. Nobody can bring anything in while the war goes on. Kreger, I think you're right. I think that things will get easier if the Europeans can find the political will to replace the United States and sideline the U.S. Righteous, bro. Safe travels. Hey, Michael Baker. How you doing, buddy? If Ukraine takes out the Kerch Bridge, the rush to get families out will create a huge problem. No, it won't, Larry. It's a good point. And you would be right except for one thing. Most of the families are gone. They're gone. Crimea's been a war zone for 3 years now. At first, normalcy stayed there, right? But now, the Atesh partisan group is reporting just this week that the families of all of the Russian servicemen in Crimea have now been sent home to Russia. All kinds of new security is in place. Leave is being canceled. Families have been sent home. That's already happened. Yeah, we're here every night, Di, whenever you can, pal. What can German Merz do? Merz can send Taurus missiles, and that's going to make a difference. That's what's going to take the Kersh Bridge out. Thanks, Owls Are Magic. Pingu says Europe can't replace U.S. one-to-one. The military intel data is very important. You're not wrong, Pingu. You're not wrong. The military data is important. Can the Europeans not replace it? I don't know. They're at a disadvantage, right? The U.S. has, 20,000 spy satellites or something ridiculous, right? Like, we can tell you from the satellite what it says on the MAGA cap that Trump is wearing today. MERS can also wield political influence on other powers in Europe, yes. Now that's interesting, Nightshade. I haven't heard that the Japanese might provide satellite intelligence to the Ukrainians. That would be good. Technically, MERS does not need UK and French approval to send Taurus here. However, he made it a condition of sending the missiles that France and UK approve. Okay? So far, UK has given its blessing. We're just waiting to hear from the French. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't know. I shouldn't say it because I don't really know. But we might hear something about that this week. Hardley says that he understands that Japan is assisting with information. That's interesting. Beyond the UK and French approvals to send Taurus missiles, which are a political formality that the Germans put on themselves, I want to stress that. Aside from that, there's all of the technical coordination required to make use of this new high-tech weapon. The integration of this weapon into a capability that the Ukrainians can exploit will not happen overnight. It's going to take some time. There's going to be kinks to iron out. It says made in China on Trump. You're right, Lars. South Korea is not riding a fence. South Korea is following its own legislation. By law in South Korea, weapons cannot be exported to parties at war, only for defensive arsenals. They can't do it. They can't even sell the Ukrainians weapons without first changing the law. Now, there's been some talk in the South Korean parliament about doing just that, if for no other reason than because lucrative weapons contracts are available here in Ukraine. But South Korea's own history of civil war is such that the inclination does not seem to lend itself to providing wartime lethal aid to combatants. Do the Chinese have a dog in this fight? They have an economic dog in this fight, that's for sure. There's all the money that Russia owes them for the Belt and Road Initiative, and it's a lot of money. Then there's all of their investments in Siberia, energy, and mining operations around Lake Baikal, things like that, right? The Siberia pipeline. Huge investments, billions and billions of dollars. Then there's the sneaky shit that China's been up to. Moving factories to Russia to produce gunpowder and artillery shells covertly for the Russians. It appears that the Chinese have been doing that. We're expecting more evidence on that later this week from Zelensky, but he's made this claim that the Chinese have actually moved factories into Russia to sell lethal aid to the Russians without it having to be imported and thus a sanctions violation. Michael, I think you're right. I think the bridge will come down once Ukraine gets the Taurus. The other dog that the Chinese have in this fight is Taiwan. They want to see the West fail and collapse in its resolve with Ukraine. Then they'll know just exactly how long they can expect the West to hold out in the Taiwan scenario. So they're watching very carefully. Oh, Van, you are the worst. That's the Koreans, pal, not the Chinese. I mean, if you're going to make stereotype jokes and racist jokes, at least get the right group right. I've heard Ukraine already has orders for the tech they've achieved from European powers. Is it true? Michael, you might be talking about the so-called Finnish model. What the Finns are doing is they're investing in weapons production in Ukraine. Some of that production goes to the Ukrainians, purchased by the Finns, but then the rest goes back to Finland. So these kinds of relationships are evolving. There is money to be made here post-war. This is going to be a hub of European defense production. No two ways about it. I saw a theory that's what the Crimea ask is about, legitimizing land grabs so China and the U.S. can start. Certainly, Emperor Trump wants Canada and Greenland and Panama. That's a real thing. The days of imperial America are coming. And it's not going to be nice to watch. The laser weapon, who's doing it? Well, the initial prototypes were Dragonfire laser directed energy weapons from the British. So the British sent prototypes of Dragonfire to the Ukrainians about 14 months ago. The Ukrainians engineered from that prototype a field-deployed weapon called the Trident. The Trident fires a directed energy beam that is efficient enough to destroy drones at 3 kilometers and blind airplane pilots or optics at 10 kilometers. It is currently deployed and in use on the battlefield here in Ukraine. Norway's using the Finnish model. Increasingly, we're seeing that be the case. The Finnish model seems to be very successful. And we're seeing some Baltic countries, the Germans, Norway, as you say, Lars, getting in on that. German Rheinmetall is building a plant here in Ukraine to produce shells. They expect it to be able to produce 1.2 million 155 millimeter NATO standard shells by 2026. So it's no help right now, but it's coming. How that affects flesh? I don't know what that means hardly. Waldo, we talked about the Saab earlier. It appears to have arrived, the first one appears to have arrived in Ukraine and is flying in the skies here. Swedish, yep. No, the laser weapons were originally British. So why has Russia not got the same type of weapon? Because Russia doesn't make anything. You don't get You don't get innovation in an autocracy. That's not how it works. You destroy all creativity in an autocracy. So there's no innovation coming out of Russia. That's a joke. Oh, how does the laser work on people? I don't have any idea. I'm unaware of any Polish tank factories sponsored by the Koreans. Not to say that it's not real. I just don't know about it, Michael. Okay. Guys, that's it for me. It's past 1 a.m. here. It's time to shut it down for the night. Thank you all so much for joining me. Big thanks to Leo Ring, who is the sponsor of tonight's live. Big thanks to Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces. Lars, who has the Discord server. Jay and Travis are moderators. Thank you, Bobby. Good night. Thanks, Leonardo. Thanks, Joe Taco. Thanks, Anthony Tommy Tom. Thanks, Laddie. Thanks, Hardley. Thanks, Joan. Bernard. You're very welcome, Bernard. Thank you. Thanks for joining me. Hey, Michael Rogers. Love your Facebook posts. I'm always sharing them, man. Thanks, Beyond Me. Thanks, Sandra. Thanks, David. All right, kids. I'm calling it a night. Make it a great day.